Hello and welcome to another discussion for the Great Ordeal. This is the I started forgetting again. The third book in the Aspect Emperor series and the sixth book in the second Apocalypse series by R. Scott Bakker. Today's discussion is going to be for chapters 4 through 7. We read approximately 100 pages each week to discuss. Here, with me, of course, I have the usual group of friends. Dan, would you like to start us off with introductions?
Yeah, I'm Dan, multiple-time reader of the series. Glad to be back to discuss this book after I missed the last session. And yeah, I'm wondering what you guys thought about that. We'll discuss these very exciting chapters.
Yes.
Yeah. Steve?
Oh.
Not your turn.
Whoopsie. Go, Steve Swatha.
Yeah. So I'm Steve. It's my second time reading the series, and excited to talk about it. A lot of things happened in these few chapters. A lot of very memorable things. So excited to get into it.
I'm Carl, first time reader, and yeah, I'm actually just finished the last few pages right before we got on. So it's pretty fresh.
Mm-hmm.
Before we get started, I have to do this every time because Carl won't. If you enjoy the series, go check out Carl's book, Truth of Crowns. The links are in the description. Go check it out. Go give it a read. I think you'll enjoy it.
That is kind. Thank you. Certainly, if you like tragic things,
yes,
there's plenty of that. A little less of the I would say if this is more biblical than like the Aspect Emperor and all that, the Second Apocalypse is more biblical. I'm trying for a slightly more like Shakespearean sort of vibe. Obviously written in a more modern language though, with dick jokes and all. So
it's very Shakespearean.
That's what I'm saying. Shakespeare loved his dick jokes.
I have read little enough Shakespeare that I don't know whether to believe you or
not. It's true.
Oh, this is true. Okay. It's actually true. People teach Shakespeare poorly. They focus on like how impenetrable his language is, rather than acknowledging that like one, these are like just compelling stories, and two, there are lots and lots of dick jokes and just sex jokes in general. Much Ado About Nothing is a joke about a vagina. Literally. Nothing was an old slang term for vagina, and so it's Much Ado About. Yeah, there's a lot of that stuff. If you look into it, Shakespeare loved it because this was popular entertainment, right? I'm sorry, we're starting off on getting sidetracked, but for any listener, yeah, Shakespeare was a big fan of dirty jokes.
This is a Friday conversation topic. ASAP.
Oh, I was just going to cancel today's discussion in favor of talking about this instead. So everybody's gone with the introductions.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Cool. A lot happened in these chapters. I can't say I grasped most of it, but yeah.
It was the Kellhus stuff that I found difficult at times, that we continue to have. There's a head on the pole behind you.
Yes.
Clearly that's, I mean, we can start there. I think that's the first chapter we read.
Yeah. It does mean something, the head on the pole. Not random.
I trust that. Yes, right. It's not completely random.
But yeah, the first time I read those passages, I don't think you're supposed to understand anything. Like, they're hard to understand even after multiple times reading.
It would be a really cool prank for Bakker to pull, though, if he just kept doing that and then never explained what the heck the head on the pole was.
Yeah.
The place called Kellhus.
Oh, the place called... Oh, yeah, Kellhus is now a place.
That's crazy. I know. This dude, he is crazy. He is crazy. Well, yeah. I fully am on the Kellhus' mad train. I get that he drinks his own Kool-Aid, but it's just absurd to me.
I mean, he said he's crazy himself, right?
Yeah, it's true. He confessed to it. So I got to give him, he has some level of self-awareness.
He said he doesn't know where the voices come from. Like, is it God? Is God crazy? Doesn't seem they're telling him very sane things.
It sounds a lot like the no god to me, but
Maybe?
I have held that to be true from the beginning. At least partially. I feel like he may be speaking to multiple voices, but I may be wrong about that. I don't know.
The voice for which to which he keeps saying that he's harvesting and he's reaping and he won't set the field on fire.
It's not specified that the voice is telling him that, or if he's got that information from somewhere else.
I mean, it's a conversation, right, between
Yeah.
himself and a voice, and they're talking.
Is it? Or is just the voice telling him something?
I thought it was
Oh,
a
you mean the
conversation.
chapter when he's talking with... Oh, yeah, okay, yeah.
Yeah, there is some italics conversation.
Yeah, no, correct.
The details of which I do not remember, but there's some mention of harvest and fields
Yeah.
and how Kellhus is the keeper or he's the deliverer of the wheat to the
Yeah.
god.
Who better to burn the wheat than the person keeping it, right?
Yes, that
Yeah.
stuff.
It sounds like the no god or someone in the consult, you know? Like the way of saying like I war with God, like who else is warring with God, right?
Well, yeah, I don't know what you discussed last time because I've only just started listening to your discussion for last time, but I think he's made multiple distinction between the gods and the god of gods, right?
Right.
So sometimes it's ambiguous what he's referring to, right?
Yeah, I mean, we haven't. Is it implied later in this chapter that the god of gods is an entity without consciousness almost? Like it can't be talking back to him.
Yeah, I think he pretty much says that it's like as far away from a human that it's like it's like an eldritch horror. Pretty much, it's inconceivable by the human mind. It's like almost a complete opposite of humanity, I guess.
Right. It's rather than us being fashioned in God's image, it's like God is like the inverse.
It's like a force. It's a entity. Some yeah.
Yeah, God doesn't want, God just is.
Yeah. The descriptions are pretty powerful. I feel for Proyas listening to all this shit. Like, it's one thing listening to it as like, oh, it's a fancy book. But if it's real life and someone is telling me that shit about my real world, that's...
Yeah.
What broke him is when Kellhus tells him that the god of gods that has nothing to do with love, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That breaks him, among other things.
About Survey was pretty intense.
Yeah.
Yeah, saying Surway is burning in hell, that made me very sad.
I mean, we kind of knew that, though, right?
Well, I don't know if she's in
Is
hell.
Is that news?
I mean, that's what Kellhus says, at least. I mean, he could be wrong. I guess he doesn't. But we now know, at least in his head, he thinks he's been to hell. So he's been to the outside.
Yeah.
So I don't know what,
Yeah.
the depths of what he learned.
At least we get a confirmation, I think. I guess there's a description of him, like he spent time learning how to, I guess, go to hell. And all those other magical arts.
Mm-hmm. So when he calls himself the place, do you think that he's got a piece of hell with him, perhaps, kind of like the dragon did? Is that why he's the place now?
Oh, interesting. I was just thinking that he's just so full of his own shit that he thinks he's beyond people and beyond kind of this mortal coil. And he's like, I am greater than a person. I am a place. But that'd be interesting if he has he has that aspect of be outside with him now.
So I feel like, mad as he is, he's not yet to the point where he would say these things to sort of sheer hubris. He must mean something by it. And I don't even think he might be exaggerating. He might be saying it like it is. So what is it that he is the question.
I don't know if it's correct. I by feeling interpret it as like he's the center. He's like immutable. He's around, like he's like the place around which other people transit or revolve. Like he's not, moving around like all the other people's. He is
Right.
where people travel through, I guess, or something like that. And
I mean, part of why I feel it is at least partly hubris is that he is the only other being that he refers to or thinks of as it. Like we were just talking about how God is an it, and he starts to refer to himself in his head as it, and I'm pretty sure he even capitalizes it, and it's just, to me, is equating him with the God of gods, and putting him on that same level, which is like peak Greek tragedy. That's like the classic hubristic thing.
yeah. But I mean, he says himself, he does a whole description of like, oh, I did this, I did that, you know, I, I converse with the gods. I'm like, he's not like completely full of himself, I guess. He is probably the most powerful human that ever existed.
Definitely. No, definitely. I wouldn't certainly argue against that. He is beyond people in a lot of ways, but he's also still fundamentally like,
Yeah.
his skull is still human, as they discovered, right, in the Ishual, as Akamian and Mimara discovered, right, is like a lot about the Dunyane's physiology had changed, but still at their core, they are human beings. Just maybe monstrous, evil humans.
Yeah.
On page 124, it says, that place where you are now, Prussia, this is the revelation. And from that point on, he's described as a place. So almost a lot of it like as a place of worship or a place of, like he's consuming, like he's transcended. It unconditioned and absolute.
Wait, the place here, is that the same as the place that he keeps referring to himself as? I thought this was just place as in like this position in your thought process, not the same as how he used the place earlier. But I could be wrong. I don't know. That the god is not comfort, the god is not law. Oh no, sorry, I was wrong. What Proyas was being told that Akamian is the prophet you sought all along.
Oh yeah.
That was fantastic.
Prophet of the past.
I had to put the book down and laugh.
Well, because Akamian is also the prophet of the god that would be the correct god for Proyas, right?
He is also the prophet of the past. Mimara's been telling us that all along, that he is a prophet. That's really cool.
I love the flashback we get to. It's such a great little, it felt very like cinematic to me, like something you'd see in a TV show of Proyas, very symbolically, this memory he has of himself falling, right? And, being caught, and Akamian is reaching for him desperately, like, give me your hand. And like, Proyas is so hesitant to do so. And he ends up falling because he hesitates too long. And it's just such a wonderful metaphor for his entire character. It's sort of distilled right there, the conflict at the core of his character and the tragedy.
Yeah. Why do you think Kellhus is doing this to Proyas?
I'm still trying to figure that out.
I'm kidding. I was kidding earlier, but he almost has a thought in his internal monologue to that effect, right? That he's spent so long just like acquiring entire peoples to his thought process. Now he's working an individual soul down, and he's not done that in so long. Like he seems to have a purpose for it, obviously, but there's also this sense of like, I'm entertaining myself a little bit.
maybe it's a test even. Like, I don't know. Like, can humans, you know, go beyond this? I don't know. That was just one of the ideas that occurred to me because it ends so tragically and kind of hilariously in a really bleak way that Saubon and Proyas are like, oh, he's just testing us. Like, this is just all about our faith. You know, when he tells us all of these things, it's really just to show that we really do believe, despite it all, despite even what he says. Like, they're so far gone, they don't even believe what their prophet is literally telling them to their face.
It's like the life of Brian. I'm not the prophet. He is the prophet.
Yeah, exactly. It is. It's just really darkly comic.
Yeah.
I loved all this stuff. I thought this was really interesting.
I do like the sections of him talking with Saubon. Like, it gives a lot more depth to Saubon's character.
Absolutely.
And like their relationship is also very interesting to me.
I wish we got more of it, honestly. I even back in the first trilogy, because I really like their dynamic. And Saubon, I feel like, is a much more fleshed out character here now. Like, I feel like I understand him more, and I see the depths to him more than I did in the first trilogy. I really enjoy every scene he's in.
Still don't agree with him, but
no, he is still not the greatest person, but he is wildly entertaining.
Yeah, and he's not as superficial as you would think from the first trilogy.
Right, exactly. And he's a great foil for Proyas, right? Like, they just bounce off each other really well, and they're the way that their flaws and strengths kind of coalesce is quite interesting.
Yeah. Who knows what he's doing? Sorry, go Steve.
Oh, sorry. I was just going to say, after 20 years of doing Kellhus's bidding, I think they almost feel like they have to go along with whatever he says. Like,
right, because otherwise it's like, it's all pointless, right? Yeah. We just committed all these atrocities. I mean, that's the tragedy, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's true for Proyas, but for Saubon, he kind of got what he wanted, right? He wanted to rule a kingdom, and he got that. But he, I think he had to, how do I put this? He went from telling Proyas, I was never as much of a believer as you were, so I don't really care that he is revealing himself to not be a prophet. He went from there to, no, you have to be lying because I refuse to believe that Kellhus would do what you said, which means that he does believe in some sense in Kellhus. Or like worships him in some way.
Well, he believes in him as a warrior, as a person of strength, right? And if he's shown as like a dishonorable, a weak person, right, based on his culture, then there would also, like, who is he for following such a person?
Okay, that makes sense. So it doesn't still have to be a religious worship. It's just
because we both
respect.
Want different things, right? So he's breaking them down in different ways.
I like I don't like it, but it was kind of interesting, the two birds in one shot that he did with Kellhus and Proyas.
Yeah, I mean, is that why he sodomizes Proyas, or is there something else?
That's why.
I mean, it's fucked up.
I was gonna. Yeah, I don't understand that. I don't. Other than just like to break him even more. I don't understand what's going on there.
Yeah.
We had this, do I remember correctly, that in the first series, Proyas had feelings for some men that he was interacting with. And I think the Sylvendi, what was his name? Nair was one of them.
Did he?
I think it's the reverse.
Okay.
I think Nair was kind of had the hots for Proyas a bit. He like all would talk about how like supple his lips were and like things like that.
Did we get the sense that Proyas reciprocated a little bit, like, but it was still forbidden? Am I completely making that up?
I don't remember it if that is.
No, I don't know. I feel like there was a scene in which Proyas noticed him too, but didn't really acknowledge it for what it was. Like, noticed Nair a similar way, perhaps. But I don't know
Maybe.
if I'm misremembering that. But if that is true, I wonder if Kellhus is doing more of like, I do not like how he did it, but this is your true nature revelation to Proyas. But I don't understand the purpose of that in the face of all else he is being told.
He does talk about, right, that, or think about Kellhus, that like to remake a man, you have to like bring out the child in him. And so I feel like that has to be part of it. And so I was like trying to think like, you know, what was Proyas, have we had hints that he was molested as a kid? Like why is he doing that? You know, because I'll admit my first instinct was just like, really? Like, where are we going here? Like, what's the purpose? Are you just doing this for shock factor? Like, I feel like it's intentional, like very deliberate. There's like something here, but I don't remember Proyas.
I don't
like,
think so.
Not the same illusions, you know, that we've had with other characters.
I thought maybe it was also just like, again, like asserting dominance. I'm like, well, I just told you all this stuff about how I'm not your real prophet, but I'm still gonna do whatever I want with you. You're just gonna, follow me anyways. I don't know. It's
right. Mind games.
Yeah. Just further breaking his psyche or something.
Yeah. Yeah. It, to me, like, unless it's touching on something very specific in Proyas, then it does feel a little like extraneous to me. Like I don't know, that he needed to be sodomized.
Yeah, maybe.
To like, he was already pretty psychologically broken. Like if you cut out that scene, I would have still believed the rest of the chapter, and how Proyas reacts. But again, it's tough to say without knowing what Kellhus is like specifically going for.
I guess it helps for the Saubon's part.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That seems to be why Proyas thinks Kellhus did. But we don't know if that's true.
Don't know anything.
We don't know anything.
No.
And that's what we should worship.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. Worship ignorance. Varsha, do you have any additional thoughts about the head on the pole behind him?
I had one thought. You know how later what they see about the Dunian completely horrifies Akamian and Mimara, how just intellect without compassion, what it makes of the men they see. I wonder if the head on the pole is a bit of a metaphor or parallel to that, like, because it's just the head with nothing else. So is the head supposed to be representative of intellect, or just in its purified form, and that's what is speaking to Kellhus somehow. But I don't. But then it also comes up as what Kellhus found in his wanderings, what made him the thing that. Wait, let me find that again. The most dominant thing in the world at the moment, or place in the world at the moment. What precedes that is that paragraph in which he waxes eloquent about how he's the center of existence right now. The line just before that was how he found the head on the pole. So I think it has to be a lot more than just the metaphor with intellect, but I don't know what it is yet. We talked last time about how it could maybe be some form of the no god, but I still don't know what the connection might be there. Did you have something, Carl? Sorry, I talked on.
I feel increasingly that it is in some way connected to the no god. I just don't know exactly how. I do feel like we're going to see explicitly a head on a pole behind him at some point. Like, I mean, for all I fucking know, it's Kellhus seen a vision of like him, like, I don't know, it's his head gets put on a pole at the end of this thing.
So do you
I don't
think
know.
that those sections are like are going to happen in the future but haven't happened yet?
A lot of his visions seem to be that way, to be tied to the future. So that's what made me think that. But I mean, the behind him is interesting because that could be, behind him chronologically, that there is a head on a pole in his past, but I don't know where or what that means. And it's hard to guess. Other than, again, I feel like it just seems very ominous, and there's a lot of destructive energy, and not energy, phrasing, language around those passages. And so I do wonder, just makes me think no God, but I'm not sure. I mean, maybe it's a different, a red herring.
Do you have thoughts on like who is talking back to him? I think in the beginning, there is something in the description. Oh yeah, yes. It stands before him, regards him as it has so many times, with his face and his eyes. No halo gilds his leonine mane. So are we to think that this is whatever it is that's talking to Kellhus is wearing his own face? Plus, when he tells Proyas that there was a voice in his head that was telling him what to do, and he started taking the orders there, Proyas asked him if it was himself that was talking to him. I think Proyas wanted that to be a comfort to him that this is still the god, but based on this description in the beginning, that might be true, but not necessarily what Proyas is thinking of it.
Maybe it's some sort of skin spy.
Sorry, say
Maybe
that
it's
again?
some sort of skin spy. That's why he looks like him.
Possibly. Like the no god. Could it?
I mean, I know. I don't think it's a skin spy. It's definitely some sort of divinity, but I don't know. If it's not the no god, it's one of the gods. I think. I don't know. We've been introduced now into this book properly to the like big evil consult lead, like fucking Sauron or whatever the fuck this dude is. So it could be him. I don't know, reaching out into dreams, visions. I don't know how he would do that. But my gut instinct is it's the no god, but maybe not. Kellhus definitely had visions of the no god in the first trilogy. Like he heard the voice, right, speaking to him. The thing that does make me think it's maybe not the no god is it isn't written in the all bold caps that no god's dialogue normally is written in. That's the biggest thing pointing against that to me. Also, the no god tends to sound pretty senile, and this entity does not sound senile. So I do remember, though, this is not the first time he had a vision of this guy. In the first trilogy, he had a vision of this guy. He had the black figure with the legs crossed. I distinctly remember, I think it was in the Warrior Prophet, that when he had his, on death's door vision, where he does, like, hear the no god at least. I'm pretty sure he also imagined this entity. I'm curious about the imagery too, right? That like this is a shadowy figure that is seemingly sinking into the ground, right? At least that's the kind of optical illusion with the way that the stars are turning, and that there's a tree behind the figure, I think. That, like, I don't know what to make of that.
Fair enough.
Do we have specific characters associated with the tree?
With the tree?
Yeah. Like, I'm trying to think of, like, is there a god we know of that is associated? I think of, like, I don't know, some sort of, like, nature, like, green man god or like a fertility goddess.
Closest thing is Yatwer to fertility. That's the
Right,
closest,
but
but
that
it's
doesn't.
not
I don't,
trees.
right? It doesn't feel like the tree, and which itself is obviously kind of a phallic symbol. So I don't know. Like I feel like if it was Yatwer, it would be all about the ground, and the soil and things like that, rather than the tree. The tree, I don't know. I do feel like it's something masculine coded, but I don't know beyond that. Is the no god even really a him, or is the no god also an it? Right? Like, are we just? I do think we just take it for granted, right? We haven't actually seen the no god and have any sense of its sex or gender or any, like, it's just like a whirlwind and a sarcophagus inside it.
Is
right?
the sarcophagus
We
the
don't
no
know
god, or is the no god whatever is inside the sarcophagus? If there's
Right.
something
I
inside.
mean, the implication would be something inside it, right? But we don't know what is inside it. Is it even a dead body? Like what the fuck? I don't know. Maybe it's like a machine, with the way the techne of it all. Maybe the no god is some sort of machine or some. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think you're supposed to know who these people are.
Right.
So I think it's fine.
We got to keep our eyes out though for tree imagery. And the other thing I think of is just the with all the Lord of the Rings references, I just think of Gondor and the White Tree of Gondor, and I mean, I guess even going beyond that to the earlier in the first stage and the two trees that have the Silmarils. I can't remember their names, but I don't know how he would be inverting that as he is like to do.
We'll see.
What I mean?
We'll see. And I think the other parts for this chapter were just like more the soldiers going crazy for the meat, I guess. A lot of meat discussions.
They're like becoming strong, basically.
Kind of.
I mean, yeah, they're like going savage. They're less, they're like losing their compassion. They're like, maybe I misread it, but I feel like they started raping the Sranc, even not just eating them, but like raping them back, which is very Sranky, like that was pretty crazy.
Yeah, and the descriptions of a meat make it sound so like disgusting,
nasty. Yeah, would not eat that.
It is not GMO.
Well, it is. It's very GMO. Actually, it's specifically genetically modified by the consult.
That's true. Yeah.
That's a fair point. It is super genetically modified.
It's not just genetically modified; it's created genetically only. Like it didn't exist before.
Yeah.
What?
Are they test tube babies? We don't know.
And then there's the whole section about the Chipalore knights going into Reola and I guess dying or becoming possessed.
Yeah. What was that?
Yeah, I struggled to follow that. What the fuck is going on in that city?
Apparently, I guess, the city is where it was one of the last outposts of men, and they were defending from the Sranc, and the consul used it as like just a place for where they could take captives. Like I think they described it like a granary or something, right? Again, this metaphor. So they instructed the Sranc, put it in like their DNA or something, not to go there, just to keep the people alive, so they could keep harvesting them. And I think that
harvesting them how? Like I would think harvesting would just mean killing them,
but
right?
I think if you kill all of them, then you don't have any more. So I think you're just taking them bit by bit and letting them, I guess, reproduce, so we could have more of them.
It's kind of concentration campy.
Sort of.
Those are straight up death camps, and I guess here they.
And I think the place became like a topoi, just like the other one. So it's like the barrier between there and hell is very thin.
Okay.
So I think that's how, and because they stay there and stuff happened, I guess something from hell came and took them, or took part of their soul or something, or inhabits them. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, definitely had the haunted city vibe. Like it was definitely creepy. I was just like struggling to understand. Like I was like, okay, the Sranc are scared of it, but like what's actually happening here?
Yeah.
It reminded me of that creepy city in what is that Robert Jordan series called?
Okay.
Wheel of Time. That's what
Wheel
I
of
was thinking
Time.
of too. Yeah,
Yeah.
it reminded me of the exact same thing. That like great evil was done here, and now this place itself is evil and like haunted by a dark spirit,
Like Harrenhal.
like Harrenhal. Potentially, if Harrenhal is in fact haunted.
Yeah.
We can have a whole conversation about that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And now these guys just do whatever they want, and they eat Sranc, eat raw. I don't know.
Why did Kellhus say from now on you do whatever you want and that's okay? Like he's almost giving them more respect, or is he getting rid of them?
I think it's because he's like, I can't control them at this point. And like, we don't want them to turn on the rest of the army, you know. So
Yeah, maybe it's better for them
That's
not
sort of-
to fight next to all the other normal humans.
right, kill more Sranc, right? Like that is still pro their goal, you know. So that's reasonable.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
I had a couple more things to talk about in the
Oh,
Proyas
okay.
Kellhus thing.
Please.
So one, this was very interesting. When Proyas asks, what of love? And for the first time that evening, Anasurumbur Kellhus was surprised. So he was surprised at the question, or that it even came up, or was he stumped for how to find an answer? And later on in that, and this is why I thought of that intellect thing, but because of all the passions, nothing is so alien to the god as love. Kellhus tells this to Proyas, and then line next to that, after that, is there was a head on a pole behind him. So this entity that supposedly can't feel love and is somehow tied to the head on the pole behind him, that seems to correlate, but I still don't know what to make of it. And did you guys have anything to add there? Otherwise, new topic on
No, I mean
this.
it's interesting. Yeah,
I think I understood it as
I'm
like,
so-
I don't know, something along the line of he's surprised that Proyas, he himself is so far away from thinking about love, and Proyas is, right, he still
Interesting,
manages to
yeah.
think about like that, and he's trying to, hang on to that
Yeah,
instead of all the other
yeah,
stuff.
like
So,
yeah, that's interesting. I didn't think of that because later when Sarva has that flashback to Kellhus when he comes home, and she's like, he's grinning at her, but he's putting on the face for her, so she understands his feelings. So yeah, I think they have to mimic love, right?
yeah.
So the other thing that I wanted to bring up was what Kellhus is describing as the god. This there is no recompense save knowing that we know nothing, and then going on to say that Akamian is the prophet you sought all along. This sounds very much like what the non-men say they worship. So are they the only ones who have been worshipping the right god all along?
Possibly. It's a good observation, though. Yeah.
So yeah, that's it. Those were my points for this chapter.
There's also, I think, nice, like the whole description of the prophets. It's not like the prophets from God to men. It's from men trying to reach God in some way,
Oh yeah, that one. Okay, yes.
to make themselves understood in any way, I guess.
Yeah, the bridge, but that seems futile in the face of what he described as the god. It feels almost like something like, here's a toy to play with, like to distract
Unless
you
he is the
while I'm
prophet,
off being
right?
this.
So he might be able to find some way to interact with the god.
So is that what those conversations are in the rest of the chapter? And well, okay, he's not actually interacting with the god because the entity that he's talking to is telling him that my business is with the god.
Yeah.
So it's not I war not with men, it says, but with the god. So it's not the god of gods that he's communicating with. But yeah, sure, if in fact prophets exist that can communicate with the god, it is interesting that they communicate the men's desires to the gods and not the other way around. Oh, it was also interesting that Kellhus keeps describing himself as the place, and then later on in the Ishual chapter, Mimara thinks to herself that that for Akamian, Kellhus is a place, like it's a labyrinth and a maze. So that parallel again was interesting. Like Kellhus thinks of Akamian as the prophet, which Mimara has been calling him all along, and vice versa. Like Mimara is the namer of things as they are. Yeah. So
I think additionally, when we think of prophets, and maybe this, if no one has anything else to say, we can kind of transition into Ishual and talking about Akamian and Mimara.
mm-hmm.
When we talk about prophets, I think a lot of the time prophets are kind of people who share truth, right? And it's some sort of higher truth. And, in this series, obviously, there's a lot of discussion around truth. And you see it in the epigraphs a lot, including in these chapters, and like capital T truth, right? The big truth, just what is really. And I do feel like, in a lot of ways, Akamian, through his skepticism to truth, to the idea, this mortal idea of truth, maybe gets closer to kind of the cosmic truths. And that in that way, he does kind of play a prophet's role, right? Where he is sort of sharing ideas that are much more true than the truth, in quotes, that, different so-called prophets are sharing. Like, I just think I want to know what Inri Sejanus's deal is. I doubt we'll ever find out. That seems like something that's just like, oh, it's in the past. It's like a mysterious for a reason. It's great world building. But I want to know, did he really believe in this stuff? Was he a Kellhus type? Was he a consult agent? What's his deal? I
want to know about Agensis. How does he know so many things?
Yeah. Right. He just seemed like a really smart dude, Yeah. How did he figure it all out? Was he just
maybe he was brilliant,
or did he?
Who knows?
Yeah. Right. People need to read more Agensis, I guess. In this world, certainly. Anyway, we cool to move into.
Mm-hmm. Well,
Ishual.
In that chapter, I think there's also the dream at the beginning of that chapter.
Oh yes.
Oh yeah, Nakayudi.
Yeah.
And the other guy.
So this did seem to confirm that I was wrong, and his wife was not a skin spy, which I'm pretty sure that what came before in this book also confirmed by saying that they came later and they were created later. I will say that theory of mine, I think, is shot down. And I guess she just sucks. She just on them because she wanted to not go to hell, which, fair enough. Okay. I mean, I guess that's as good a motivation as any.
Yeah, and I guess the consult is shown as being just, I don't know, they're like torsos floating in some sort of liquid or something, right?
I really could not picture the imagery in this section. I tried really hard. I reread passages. I could not. The only thing I got were the 10 withered faces. Yeah. I got that. I could not understand how they were connected. Are they all attached on poles? Are they all connected like a hydra? Are they there was something about a disc that they were on that was shield.
I pictured each of them were like a disc inside this sort of lava lamp tube around where Nakayuki is, and it's like a vertical shaft. That's how I imagine it, but that's not not guaranteed that's what it looked like. But that's how I imagine it.
That's they're floating around in some sort of suspension. That does feel on brand for, because they're clearly dealing with sci-fi stuff on top of just the fantasy of it all. This is definitely, there's some techne going on here, as well as magic, I feel like. So I I could see that. The lava lamp imagery. That's interesting.
I keep imagining things like floating behind them, sort of, like a lava lamp sort of thing. I don't know if it's true, but
What are your thoughts, Steve? Steve Swatha.
Some of that stuff is really hard to keep up with. There's a lot that it's come up really vague. It's hard to piece it together, kind of make sense of it sometimes.
Yeah. It's creepy. Like, atmospherically, it definitely does the job, but I just, like, I have no idea what I'm looking at here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it was cool. I mean, that guy it's interesting that he's, like, one soul inhabiting a multitude, and he's this wicked, immortal human, or he was human, but he's now, like, twice damned, that he's, like, straddling his thoughts, I guess, are in hell, but his body,
his passion,
or something, or his soul.
That's interesting. There's a couple of discussions on, like, souls in these chapters, right? Like, we get a lot more information on both how it works, like trapping souls, right?
Yeah, it's interesting. I feel like there's a lot we get here, and there's so much it's actually hard to, like, fathom it all, because we're definitely, like, a lot of proper nouns are thrown at us, a lot of I'm curious, like, we definitely get a lot about the consult, like the inner workings of the consult here, but it's tough to, like, piece together everything.
I'm surprised you didn't mention the mention of a certain item at the end of the first section there for the chapter.
We can get to that. Absolutely. I don't know where this thing is going to pop up, or if this is just the biggest, like,
debate
asshole joke in the series, that he's telling us all about the heron spear, and it's never going to come up. I feel like it has to. Like, this is now, it's like it's getting brought up again, but I fell for this the first time. I felt like that was certainly going to come up in a very, Crusades way, Spear of Destiny, but it didn't. And so now,
but this is before it actually came up and killed the No God. So in theory, it does come up after in the timeline.
Yeah, we're learning about it again, right? It's like a reminder, like, narratively, I feel like this feels like it's being planted, but I don't know. We don't know where it is. I mean, that's the thing, right? Like, and for some reason, maybe my memory of this is wrong, but I felt like they got the heron spear from within. Didn't they steal the heron spear?
Well, that happened before. So I think now
that right, and then
is it already in the hand of the guy that used it in the end or not? Right. I don't remember. I don't know.
I guess we don't know exactly the timeline here. Maybe. Certainly, it's not at that moment yet where it's been used.
It's never. Yeah.
And somehow they go hundreds, if not thousands, of years. I mean, maybe the whole reveal is going to be that the fucking consult has destroyed it by this point. It's like you have this hope built up that this one weapon can do, and it's like, no, they got to it. They've got it when the Skilvindi stole it. Now it's like fucking, it's gone. There is no hope. Has been taken from men.
Possibly.
I don't know. What are your thoughts on the heron spear, Varsha?
Honestly, I feel like I care about it a lot less than you do.
You just you introduce a thing called the heron spear, which is a badass name. You tell us it's the only thing that can kill the no god, which, like, okay, that's huge. And then we find out at the end of the trilogy that it's a fucking laser weapon. It's a sci-fi shit. Like, we're dealing with, like, a lightsaber. Come on. Like,
no, I mean, I have become interested over the course of the series because of your interest. Like, I probably wouldn't even have noticed it if it wasn't for your bringing it up. And I mean that in a good way. Like, I don't tend to notice these things. So, the only times I've cared about the heron spear are when you brought it up. Although this time I feel like I should care about it because it's the dream was cut off mid-sentence when this Mangeka school guy is demanding where the heron spear is. So I guess we are leading up to that's not the part that Akamian focuses on at the end of this dream, but I do feel like we're leading up to it playing more of a role later on.
It does seem weird to me that he isn't concerned about that. Like, I guess he just doesn't care about the console at this point, that he's so single-minded in destroying Kellhus that he has lost the plot, that there's also this even greater threat. But I don't know. I would think that they would want, or Kellhus for that matter, like, what is his, I guess we don't know. Like, maybe he has looked for the Heron Spear. But you would think that that would be, like, first on everyone's mind of, like, we need to find this thing in case the No God comes back. I don't know. I mean, knowing Kellhus, I feel like he had to have done something about it. He must have at least tried, but I don't know. Well, I guess we just don't know. We don't know what went on there.
Yeah. And I don't even know at this point if Kellhus wants to kill the No God. Like, what is he trying to do? If he is trying to destroy the No God before, well, first I guess he wants to stop him from even being awakened. But if he is awakened, I guess he needs a weapon to kill him. But I'm not sure that he does want to kill the No God, which I guess would make sense that, at least now with some Kellhus POV and those weird conversations, he's complaining that men tend to die, and whatever's talking to him is saying, no, but you need to burn the field. So he's resisting the idea of destroying all the men, so maybe he doesn't want the No God to come back, but maybe he will be on the side that wants to awaken the No God because of whatever this thing is telling him to do.
Yeah, he finally gives in. I don't know. It's, yeah, he is hard to predict, right? To know the inner workings of Kellhus.
Yeah.
I was glad that Ishual wasn't a complete dead end, I'll say. If we were ready to move on to Ishual proper. I mean, I was convinced it was like that would have just been so fucking lame if they walked all this way and there was absolutely nothing in Ishual. And what we got was suitably messed up, but also interesting. I mean, shit, Kellhus has another kid. That's crazy. Learning about the whale mothers, that was horrible. That whole scene was phenomenal. I got to give it to Bakker. That was some top tier writing. Just really powerful stuff.
The whale mothers, I think it's one of the most fucked up things in this series.
Yeah.
It's horrible.
It's horrible.
Does that mean that there are no female Dunyan?
No, those are the female Dunyan.
Yeah.
No, as in, like, the ones who are called Dunyan.
I don't think so.
Who
Like
are
the ones who
the
act
filtered
and I guess not.
intellect.
Seems like not. I mean, I think it's tied to what Mimara sees, that, like, at least in the judging eye, that women have the lesser soul. And so the Dunyan, for some reason, are like, they somehow figure that out, even though I don't know if they believe in souls, and they make them whale mother. I mean, it's clearly a sexist thing, right? Like, this is not good. But maybe that's, like, tied to it, or
I think it's actually the opposite, because Mimara sees from, like, what the God of Gods sees, right? And even she says, yes, but this is not what women are supposed to be. And, like, instead the Dunyan come to this conclusion from a purely biological, sort of, I guess, rational point of view. Like, for them, it's just like, what's the most efficient way of reproducing, and without, if their role is just to reproduce, then they have no need to do anything else, right? That's
right. I mean,
purely utilitarian, right? So that's like the abomination of it just being purely practical, I guess.
It's not even practical, though. Like, there's so much more. It's such a, like, it's boiling down a whole, like, a multitude into a single.
Well, if you want to do, I guess, highly accelerated genetic modifications without our technology, then the only way you can do it is by having a ton of, I guess, reproduction. So there's probably a lot of these whale lovers, and again, it was showing them like in a row, just going at it, and it was just trying to have probably the most amount of babies, and they're just killing all the ones that were not what they needed, because they needed just like extremely fast, high amount of permutations, I guess.
Yeah, it's true. You got to pump out a lot of kids.
It's like so inhumane, I guess. It's just from a different perspective,
Definitely.
I guess. Not.
Yeah.
That's how I read it.
I actually think it's really cool and normal.
It reminds me a lot
More sound
of,
bites.
I don't know if anyone has seen Bone Tomahawk. The scene,
It reminded me
the
of that
scene
too.
with which is also extremely fucked up.
Yes, it is.
And it's
It's just
at least they're
just
dead
sad.
here.
It's horrifying.
At least there's not anymore. Hopefully.
They're dead now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they're probably in hell
I guess.
if there's no
But-
winning.
Why would they be like the damnation logic of this world makes no sense to me. They are the lesser soul, sure, and they did what they are supposed to, and they still
Well,
go
they
to
didn't
hell.
do anything to ingratiate themselves to any god, did they? Which seems to be the way.
I don't know, Yacht were. I mean, I guess they didn't maybe worship Yacht. I guess the problem is just they're Dunyang, you know? Like, they are Dunyang. They're just, this is what women, the female Dunyang are, you know? They're the whale mothers, which is just bleak.
Yeah.
It's, ugh. You would think Yatwer would have their back, but I guess Yatwer is a phony. They're all phonies.
Well,
I'm becoming Holden Caulfield about these gods.
I mean, they do something. They do things.
They do things, but not even consistently. What did the Ishual call Yatwer the fertility principle? Come on. It doesn't get apparently a bigger fertility principle than these fucking whale mothers who aren't allowed to do anything else. They're literally basically they're like Yatwer distilled. They're the victims. They're the slaves. They're women.
But for
they give birth.
Yatwer,
That's
it's like the giving. It's like you need. It's not taking from you, right?
Well, it's both.
Yeah, but I think there needs to be some level, at least from Yatwer's perspective, of you voluntarily accepting that thing to happen, I guess.
So does she not represent women who are raped? I guess I just assume. I don't know
think
if
so.
it's ever said that. I know that they talk about it.
Like, because you see how Satma, how she approaches things. Like, yeah, I guess you could define it as her getting raped in some of these circumstances, but it's her, like, she's not in control, but she's, I don't know, there's some level of participation from her, of active participation in the giving, I guess.
I mean, yeah, that's what she spells out. Is she learned the power of giving, and yeah,
Again, the gods are, I don't know, who knows what they think. Very convoluted.
They're phonies. Yeah, it's fucked up.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways, isn't what the Dunyan do exactly like what the consult do with the Sranc?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I had the same thought. It's like the same shit. Just to different
less
ends.
Efficient, probably.
And less efficient, probably. That's true. The Dunyan really are like the consult in miniature, which is kind of what they think, right? Like Mimara, and which I will say is super satisfying to have Mimara finally turn on Kellhus and realize Kellhus sucks. And yeah, Kamian, you know, they're just evil, right? Mimara calls it out. It's like there's just no other word for it. It's beyond any excuse.
Yeah. So how do you feel they're gonna then interact with these two new Dunyan we got?
I don't trust them as far as I can throw them. We got another evil kid.
Wait, does that make Serva and Thaliopa the only female, like, enlightened-ish Dunyan?
Seems like it.
Yeah, it does seem like that.
Interesting.
What did everyone think about the details around how the survivor and the boy made, like the battle, I guess, that happened?
Yeah.
It definitely sounds epic and chaotic. And a lot went on in the 30 years between the series. I guess the consult found them, or at least the Sranc did.
Has it mentioned how they found them? I don't remember. No.
I
No.
don't think so.
Do you think someone told them? Kellhus told them?
Yeah, I was going to say, I almost think Kellhus set the Sranc on them so that they
That would be
wouldn't be
crazy.
found.
He'd never do that.
Sure. I have a bridge I want to sell you.
I'm sure he loves his children that he has there very much.
It is wild. Like, that's something I hadn't even considered, that Kellhus had another kid. Like, that's one of those, like, reveals that just makes perfect sense in hindsight. You're like, yeah, he left. He was, like, a fully grown man. He was, like, 30-something, you know? And with how the Dunyan work, of course he's, like, popped out a kid.
Yeah,
at
he might
least
have
one.
even more.
Right. I think it's interesting too, the actual child here, who I feel like we don't get a name for.
I don't think so.
Do we get a name? He's like the last-born Dunyan, right? Which was interesting because we met apparently the last-born non-man. And I don't know if there are any intentional parallels there, or like what that would mean. But that's just something I occurred to me in the span of a few chapters. We got the last of two different species, you know. I don't know what that means, other than maybe we're reaching the end times.
Do we actually believe that the rest of the Dunyan are gone?
That's what they say.
I mean, I guess, yeah, that's a fair question.
Again, would they lie?
Where would they? Yeah, where would they be?
I mean, deeper inside the mountains, do you think none of them would have escaped the Sranc, gone out the other side?
Somewhere in the labyrinth?
I feel like... I'm sorry, Steve, what were you saying?
Oh, just maybe they're somewhere in the labyrinth.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I guess they could still be hiding, right? I guess this could all be a game. Maybe they went over to the consult. I don't know. I feel like the kid... I don't know. Yeah, I guess they would have to be hiding in the thousand halls.
Isn't it somewhat strange that they were sort of at the borders of the labyrinth if all the people had run for their lives deep into the mountains?
Yeah. Yeah, I wonder, what are they doing there, right? Like, the battle is over. Like, are we just going to chill there forever?
Mm-hmm. Where it's clearly unsafe. There are Sranc that are still coming there.
I simply do not believe Kellhus left the Dunyan untouched and all the time. So I would be shocked if he had not gone back, or at least, didn't unleash this Sranc on them or something. It would just seem so strange to me if he decided, I'm just going to leave them be. Like, his calculus is that they don't matter. You know, whatever can happen to them. So
he could have either set the Sranc on them, which is but why would he do that? The other thing he could have done is warned them that they are about to be found because this Akamian guy is coming there, and sent them way deep into the mountain and then made it look like the Sranc have attacked.
Well,
interesting. Yeah.
They talk about the Shriekers and the Singers were non-men.
That's right.
Erratics, who turned to the consult in the pursuit of murder and memory. So we know earlier, I think it was in White Luck Warrior, that Kellhus was friendly with some non-men. So maybe it's part of a deal, or maybe he's making friends and influencing non-men.
It is interesting too that this last, like the boy is, Mimara describes him as a boy with his head shaved in mockery of Nogikas.
Mm-hmm.
Like, is that just acknowledging because that's like the one non-man she's met, or is it
Maybe.
is there something more specific there that she's seeing?
Or
What?
I have a ridiculous theory, which is like I'm just having fun.
Please. Yeah.
Kellhus extracted his son, who is very close to the absolute, and then handed him off to some non. And so now they've shaped their heads to look like non-men. That's ridiculous.
Diplomacy at work. I mean, that wouldn't be a terrible diplomatic plan. Hostage exchange is a classic, as we've seen, a classic sort of thing. But
Oh, he had a different interaction with the non-men for which he had to fulfill the niyam. Oh,
like a different group of non-men.
I think this was the last house. Maybe with like a smaller group, but it's the last mansion, I guess. Ishtarbian. But maybe there's smaller groups somewhere.
it's unclear. But anyway, I wasn't doing that one seriously. But as I said, niyam out loud, that sounds a lot like the Hindi word niyam, which means law or, I guess principle.
Interesting.
I mean, it makes sense because it's kind of like it's like a pact. I don't know, yeah, like a law or something. Because they seem very like, oh, we have to follow it if they fulfill it, right?
Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, that part had a very, ancient Greek or ancient, I don't know, Roma or something sort of feeling to it, right?
Yeah, everything with the non-men definitely. I for a while they were giving me like Egyptian vibes, but I definitely felt very Roman influence when or Greek. I mean, it just felt very like it almost felt like we were in the forum or not the forum.
Yeah, no, the forum, I think. Yeah,
Maybe this could be the forum. Yeah,
Colosseum.
Watching the Senate convene, and it's interesting. Any other thoughts on Ishual?
I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on in Ishual, I guess. Is there? Oh no, not Ishual. Sorry, I was thinking. Yeah, no, go ahead. I was not thinking of Ishual. Ishtarban.
Ishtarban.
They're very similar names.
Yes, they are. I'm down to jump to. I mean, that's the last chapter, but if you want to skip, that's fine with me.
We should go in order.
Yeah.
On to Momin.
Yeah.
That was so I what do you make, Varsha, of I guess I'm skipping the little shit Kelmomus. What do you make of him being told / believing, thinking that a Jokli is the Narendar, which equals White Luck Warrior? Like, I feel like he's just wrong, right? Like, we've had no reason to think a Jokli and the White Luck Warrior are the same entity, right?
Yeah.
As far as I understand, the White Luck Warrior replaced, like, took the spot of one of a Jokli's Narendari.
Yeah, I don't think the White Luck Warrior and the Narendar are the same person. Like, as in, he may have moved on. I agree with you. I don't think that his continued persistence there is as the White Luck Warrior. This was interesting. Like, in Momen, Narendar is synonymous with a Jokri's assassins, whereas the Zoom guy, Soranga, tells Sorville that he is Narendar because he's a god's assassin. So is that just difference in terminology, or is Soranga wrong and Narendar means specifically Ajokli's assassin. And we haven't been told yet that the White Luck Warrior has something to do with Ajokli.
I don't know. I mean, it feels like a weird thing to withhold,
Yeah.
at this point.
Yeah.
And they don't feel like they have a lot in common in terms of like the kind of imagery and symbolism we've got. Like the White Luck Warrior is very serious. It's a warrior, so therefore like, associated with war, while Ajokli is a trickster, is a murderer. And certainly while warriors commit a lot of murder, it's supposed to be more of a like, and I guess he's an assassin, the White Luck Warrior, so he is committing murder. So I guess that is very Ajokli-esque. I don't know. I definitely didn't have any reason to it. Like, if anything, I think I brought up before, like, is the White Luck Warrior Gilgal? Because that's the only other god that, like, to me makes any thematic connection, makes sense, but I don't know.
We were told that the White Luck Warrior is Yatwar's brother, who is the god of war, right? But we weren't told specifically which god.
Yeah, he's a god of war. He definitely was called that, yeah.
Could a trickster god be a god of war? Like the chaos, they feed off of the chaos. And, who had this thought? I forget that gods are, they don't need like they don't follow individual lives. It's like the larger human events that feed them. So things like wars and famine and plagues and so on. I forget where that came up. Was it Kellhus thinking that? No, that sounds too mature for him. Was it Memara?
No. I don't know, that's too mature for him. He definitely has some very adult thoughts. Kellhus.
That's true.
And there's always this like impish, childish aspect to him, but I definitely felt like at times when I was reading his section, I was like, he feels like he is thinking like an adult here. Like a very, petulant adult, but nonetheless.
Oh, I don't mean mature like grown up, more like sensible mature, but
Fair enough. Yeah. He's definitely crazy. No doubt about that.
But yeah, where was I going with that? Yeah, Ajokli, if as a trickster, if he feeds on chaos, and these are the events that bring about chaos, then it could make sense that he is also a god of war. If we don't know yet who the god of war is that the White Luck Warrior is supposed to represent.
It definitely is possible. Yeah. It just feels like to me, if they are ultimately one and the same, or like intimately connected in that way, it would feel to me like a kind of crude thing, because I just feel like there just hasn't been that sort of connection before. But I don't know.
Yeah, but isn't it?
I just feel like he's wrong. Like I feel like this is one of those cases of like unreliable narrator. Like he's just incorrect and he's making a leap. Like he's still convinced the voice in his head is his little brother, and I just simply do not believe that. Like if the series ends and we still haven't found out who it is, I will still not believe it. I do not believe that is Sammy.
Okay.
Isn't it interesting though that the prologue of this second series started with that Ajokli Kellhus interaction, and also like we seem to be setting up to give Ajokli a much bigger role now.
Yeah.
So I mean, it isn't technically out of nowhere, but I agree with you that it is a little bit out of the left field. So I
don't think it's out of nowhere for like Ajokli to play a role, or let alone to play a role in Kellhus' storyline. It just feels like the White Luck Warrior and Ajokli have not had any sort of connective tissue in the same way White Luck Warrior and Yatwar have, Or, I mean, I guess the one time was when the White Luck Warrior killed a Narendar who was a Narendar of Ajokli. But I don't know.
Yeah.
It just like I feel like if they were like one and the same or like intimately tied together, we would have heard about that by now. And this is the first time that's really actually happened. You know what I mean? Like they just don't have that relationship. So it just feels wrong to me because of that.
Yeah, that makes sense. No arguments there.
There is a good detail here for people, for me and Steve, where it was like, I guess if I was a genius the first time I read it, I would have been able to notice it, but now it's very obvious.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's interesting because it's specifically mentioned, but like you don't notice it.
There's so much mentioned. There's so much going on, and it's hard to know what's reliable and what's not.
Yeah.
So
That's definitely true, right? What is accurate information and what is, just point of
And
view
which statements
perspective.
are like, oh, this is not just this, it's like it means a lot more. Right? And
Right.
which ones are just, oh, it's a description.
I do feel like that there is some truth to the idea that Kellhus did make some offering to Ajokli, by torturing the bug in front of the statue. Like even without meaning to, I do believe that adds up. Like that there was some sort of divine connection there. I just don't feel like he's interpreting that as he fired the White Luck Warrior into their court, right? Again, using the White Luck Warrior as this like slow moving bullet metaphor, right? When everything we understand is the White Luck Warrior is aimed at Kellhus, and this is just on the path. This is the path that Yotwar laid out for him. And we're even, it comes up again in Ishtarabint. We actually have a better understanding now of how Sorwheel relates to the White Luck Warrior. It's not 100% clear, but Sorwheel is the anointed. Like they're described as like two sort of champions of Yotwar or something. I forget the word used to describe the White Luck Warrior. It's like the not like the summoned.
Yeah.
It's like something like there was some I don't remember, but I do remember anointed was the term used to describe Sorwheel. So there is a difference between them at this point, which I don't fully know what to make of it, but that I think does clarify some level of like they're maybe tied into a larger plan, but they're not necessarily the same figure. It then opens the door of like which one of them actually kills Kellhus, if either of them
both at the
does.
same time.
Both of the maybe it's just Yotwar making sure they don't miss.
Both interact with each other. I don't know. One needs to live for everyone or something.
Exactly. He's a little too short. He can't quite reach Kellhus on his like dais, so just hoist him up on his back.
Maybe. I guess we don't know. Yeah. What's going on?
I still don't know how the fuck the White Luck Warrior gets all the way up there. Like they walked a really long way.
Yeah.
I don't know how all that's going to work. Where he's not making any progress. He's staying in the court. So I don't know. I don't know what's going on there. Yes, you do.
What was the offering that Kellhus supposedly made to Ajokli? Sorry, not the offering. The prayer that he had. Like, did he make some requests of him? Not of him, but like, did he have some thoughts in his mind about his family and wanting them all to die that may have...
Well, he thinks that a lot.
Yeah.
So, maybe Ajokli just like read between the lines there. It was like, hey, you got it, kid.
Yeah.
Good beat is here. Here, let me send you a White Luck Warrior in response.
Yeah, thanks for torturing this bug. I got
He's thinking about how to kill fully open now, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Which no surprise. Like that was the most obvious thing.
I feel bad for her though. She seems like she's like sort of nice, I guess. She did counsel her mother to kill the prostitute, I guess, but
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. She also sucks, but I'm a fan. I'm on Team Velior.
Better than Kalmomas, for sure.
Right. Yeah, definitely better than
that's
Kellhus.
our benchmark.
What do you think of her decision not to tell Esmenet about Kalmomas?
I hate it. I hate it. I understand the logic, but I hate it. It drives me nuts, and it's going to backfire. It would be more shocking to me if she doesn't end up dead by Kelmomas' hands through this. Like, it feels like she just basically signed her own death warrant by not doing anything about it. Like, these people are not taking this kid seriously enough. It's infuriating.
It's got a very similar vibes to the first series, and now you're knowing about Kellhus and not telling anyone, and we're like, oh, just tell them.
Right. Tell someone, yeah. And of course, as soon as he does, it makes a huge difference, right? He finally tells Akamian, and that completely changes the tide. And, ultimately Akamian is... And it's just too late at that point. Like, they just can't stop him. If ever they could. Yeah. Fucking... These fucking people with their secrets.
And what about the Kalmomas screaming the Narendra kills him?
I hope so.
Okay.
That's my thought. I don't know. Did he also, am I wrong? He also dreamed of the Narendar sleeping with his mother?
The misfit?
I thought there was something about that, but maybe it was like at the end that happened.
Maybe a misfit.
What was I going to say? I forgot.
Yeah, as he's thinking about the White Luck Warrior / Ajokli / Narendar killing his mom ultimately, we have in that same scene, he hid in the deepest marrow, where he wept and wailed for the imagery that shrieks beneath his soul's eye. The tore glimpses of mother penetrated, violated time and again, her beauty battered from her face, her skin perforated, bleeding like gills, maps of blood cast across her precious urban frescoes.
Well, I assume that was like being stabbed.
Maybe with a knife. Yeah, that may be with a knife. It occurs to me. That is, I mean, Bakker knows what he's doing, right? Like, then there is weird Freudian shit going on with Kelmomas' obsession with his mom. Like, it's weird. I don't know. If he hits puberty, I would not be surprised if he starts having sexual feelings about his mother. So, the kid is he's got issues.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like he's this close to that.
Yeah, he really, I agree. I'm like, he's like right on the edge. To take like one little hormonal rush, and
I thought it was also interesting that how he realizes that all the things that happened, even though he was moving them, like he was not in control of anything. Right.
Yeah.
That's when he has the Ajokli realization, right?
It's chaos, baby.
It feels like very ordered chaos, though. Like if it's all pre-planned, like he thinks it is.
Yeah.
Feels very Ajokli. Like set off a possess this little kid, set him off, and watch what unfolds.
Fair enough.
That's still my number one theory. We'll see. It may not be true, but I mean, Ajokli's somewhere, right? Like he's not gonna. I don't know. Actually, the Heron Sphere still hasn't come up, so maybe I'm wrong. Maybe Ajokli is this series is this quartet's Heron Sphere, and it's just gonna be I'm gonna have blue balls at the end of it.
Yeah, I keep going back to that moment in the White Luck Warrior when Esmenet is outside the palace and like everyone comes to attack the Andiamin Heights, and Kelmomas thinks to himself that he need not worry for his mother because Ajokli's doing this, and so that means that his mother will be fine. Like, how did he even know that? Like, I didn't get this based on his full internal monologue through this chapter. I didn't get the sense that he feels like he has this excellent working relationship with this god. It's like he's just it's like he's just realizing that the god may be interfering. So, given that, what do we make of that previous thought he had that Ajokri is handling this, so everything's fine?
When did he have that thought?
When Esmenet is caught outside and the palace was being attacked by Maithanet's people, he's worried briefly for Esmenet, and then he's like, yeah, no, I think she'll be fine because this four-horned brother is handling this.
Maybe he like didn't really believe it, you know. Like maybe it was like, oh yeah, like things are fine, like it's chaos and it'll be, you know, it'll be. I don't know. I don't remember that part. So I don't remember. He definitely doesn't feel like he has a controlled relationship, understandably, with Ajokli.
Yeah. And that's the moment in which I thought that maybe you were right, Carl, about the voice in his head being maybe Ajokli. But then we go back to him addressing the voice as Sammy. And I'm like, okay, back to square one in both places.
Yeah. I just like, part of the reason I don't believe it's Sammy is I'm like, okay, what's the payoff? Like, what is Bakker trying to say here? Like, what is actually happening here? You know, as opposed to like with the way, you know, thematically this series, this final quartet seems to really be about, in a big way, if not wholly, about the gods, you know, playing chess with mortals, and that mortals can't really help. And we see this really highlighted in Sorwheel's chapter, where he quite literally is not acting of his own volition. And that to me feels like it ties perfectly in, you know, if Ajokli or someone is speaking to Kellhus, if not outright possessing him. And of course he wouldn't know because he's a stupid little child. I mean, super intelligent, but he is still a kid. And a psycho kid at that.
There's something there. There's something
in the same
there
way,
with the voice. It's,
right.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly. You know, I feel like we comfortably say that Kellhus is in some way delusional, right? Like he's not like totally, completely rational, you know? And I maintain in the same way that Kellhus, despite everything he says, is not completely, like he's still something is motivating him that is not innately rational. And I just think Kellhus is a more exaggerated version of that, in the way that all his kids in some way are like exaggerated aspects of Kellhus.
Do you think that the voice in Kellhus's head is all that is irrational about him, or do you think there's more than that?
No, I think it goes deeper than that. I mean, I think before, unless it's been there this entire time. I mean, I guess that's the big question, is like, with the gods, you don't know. Assuming it's one of the gods, I don't know. I just think that he's not completely cut off from the darkness that comes before, is my opinion. Because again, I mean, I said this way back in the first trilogy that like, he would not be motivated if he genuinely had like no desire. Like even the desire for the absolute is a desire. Like where does that come from? You know, it is a inherently paradoxical philosophy, and one that is, in my mind, it's circular logic. It just feeds itself. It's not, you know. I do think he's more strictly logical than your average human, but not. I mean, he hasn't reached the absolute as he would define it, which is
chapters. He says, despite everything I've still done, he still feels like the darkness. Right.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. I do think Kellhus finally kind of acknowledges that, which is interesting that he seems to be aware of that. So tough to tell with him.
It's tough to tell everything. It's like, it's insane how like you've read so much of this series and you're still, every single thing you're like, what's going on? But you're like, a lot of things are happening. A lot of things make sense, but still you're like, is this all smokes and mirrors? What's really happening?
Right. How about with Fanayal and Mim Gowi and...
Well, I guess, now he's Fanayal. I guess now Yatwer is taken control of the fandom, I guess, at this point. It seems like it's all a plan. It's all going to lead to something from Yatwer, right?
That was an awesome scene when, like, full horror movie, he just gets, like, suspended in the air. That was very cool. Yatwer is not fucking around.
She is supposed to be, like, I think maybe the most powerful, like, the equal to Gilgal of the gods, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that whole subplot, Varsha?
Yeah, I think Nanaferi has been pretty fascinating. I can't say I enjoy the fascination with period blood. I did not like that scene at all. But by the rest of it, I think how she's described almost like this languishing cat, like with not a care in the world. Like she knows that she's in control of the whole situation. Yeah, I think that's really interesting. It feels like at this moment, Yatwer is the one driving everything, which makes you wonder what her relationship is with the God of Gods. And we talked about this a little bit last time. Given what Kellhus has told us about the God of Gods, what does that mean? The 100 are, like, what are they even? I guess some possibilities we discussed, catching Dan up, were like maybe ascended humans or some demons that got away and became gods or whatever. But like regardless, what she seems to be, for whatever reason, driving all the events right now. And given what we know in the next chapter, where the non-men, they have this realization that Kellhus didn't send Sorville because he was aware of Sorville's involvement with Yatwer, but more that they are now involved in whatever Yatwer is apparently plotting. And even though Yatwer apparently cares about them as much as they care about the Emama, they are now suddenly feeling respect for her, and like, yeah, we can't do anything to make her angry at us, which again I think adds these additional layers to her importance. And that's where it all started too. Like the Ajokli and the Yatwer scenes were where the series started, way back in the Judging Eye. So it makes sense that these are the two gods that seem to be now driving a lot of things. But yeah, I'm very curious to see where it's going. I don't have any answers, just a lot of like, oh, where is this going?
If we're moving on to Ishtar event, I'm curious what everyone's thoughts are on what Surwa is doing to the non-men, because I am like, she literally just like singing songs about their past to them, and that's arresting their emotions. Like is this some like Cersei, like the goddess, not like Cersei Lannister? Like it is. I'm confused about exactly what's going on there.
Seems
right. That was as far as I got.
I think she is singing songs to them. I don't know what purpose. Like, is she trying to make them fall in love? Even though we know what happens with non-men when they fall in love.
Right.
Yeah. But she seems unperturbed by their torture, I guess.
Right. She's okay, and Moingus is
not okay.
Suffering.
He's just a normal guy.
He's not okay. Yeah. He really is. He's just dealing with the shit.
Yeah. But I guess we do get confirmation of like, well, sort of confirmation that like they were trying to make him hate them so they could fulfill the neon, I guess.
Right.
But I guess who knows what Kellhus has thought. I guess Kellhus thought they would be able to. That was his plan.
And we got added depth to the magic,
Yeah.
the mask. That it's some sort of spiritual.
Yeah.
I mean, it's possession,
It's got the soul
right?
of the Amulus. It's got the soul of the non-man. Which is interesting because, again, we got other possessions, sort of other things before. And I think this is something I can mention because we have all the information. It's a theory. I don't know if it's real. But I read some people theorizing that the reason Akamian can see Naokayuti is something to do like his soul was put into the heart of Seswata in a similar like soul, capturing thing.
Interesting.
And maybe even Seswata's like soul was being captured into the like his heart, so that's how they're trying to, transferring that knowledge.
That's cool.
So the theory that I had this time, Naokayuti is the one who was rumored to be Seswata's son, right? So I thought maybe it's a genetic thing that you have access to Naokayuti's memories now because of whatever in the heart's magic gives them access to Seswata's.
I would say it's a theory. It's a theory.
Yeah, I went the genetic route.
memory.
Not that there's yeah. I mean, but that still doesn't explain a lot of the other things he saw in which neither of them were present.
Is there anything where neither of them is present? I'm trying to think.
I think so. I think there were scenes.
There are at least memories that Seswata is missing from that do not involve Naokayuti. And maybe they're supposed to be like Seswata was originally in the memories and is no longer. It was unclear to me if they were like Seswata memories that suddenly Seswata wasn't a part of, or if they are completely disconnected and they just take place in the same age.
Fair enough. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I guess this idea of possession, it does open the idea that maybe Sammy's soul or some other dead person's soul is in Kelmomus. It just feels so, it just doesn't feel right. Anyway, I don't want to get sidetracked with that again. I do think it's interesting that it's this like, crazy, what's the word I'm looking for?
Yeah.
Sadist non-man seemingly that has inhabited Sorwheel. Definitely does not bode well. Like that's not the type of soul you would want.
Is that the kind of soul you would want to give to someone as your interpreter, as your like conduit to your civilization?
Yeah, really, he was not. He was like explicitly not popular. Like I have all the people to stick in, and you would think it would be like, I don't know, Sinjara Sunmoy or someone like.
I mean, it is a
someone that
punishment
people like
putting
in
the
there.
soul of someone in there. So
yeah, I mean, for one of them, like that's tough.
But did you get the impression that any of the non-men really liked each other? Like they still cared?
I mean, that's fair. They're definitely not all fond of each other. They respect some more than others, though.
That's true.
Like they definitely like there's a level of like almost worship. Again, it feels kind of very Roman to me. So kind of talking about them more. I do not trust the lastborn as far as I can throw. I mean, maybe Bakker's just made me. He has made me. I just don't trust people anymore in this series. This non-man guy who's seemingly
super
friendly, who's just the new Kuya for Sorwheel. No, this dude has some scheme going on, and Sorwheel is going along with it, and it's not going to be pleasant.
But he's only doing what Yatvar wants him to do. So
does he even have a choice in anything?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's something I was wondering with like the non-men. So like if the non-men see, okay, he's a vessel of Yatvar, so we should leave him to do what he needs to do. But in theory, since Yatvar can see anything, if the non-men decided to do something to him, wouldn't that be what Yatvar wanted to happen? So in theory, you
Yes.
can do
Yes.
anything anyways, and that's because you did it. It's what is supposed to happen.
Well, I think the point is it's not, though. There's only one path that's going to be taken, you know?
Yeah,
And so
but the
nothing is
logic
going
is
to
kind
happen
of
then.
circular. That's how I'm saying.
Oh, absolutely.
But
Yes, it is absolutely circular. It's a paradox.
but that's how they are rationalizing what Yatvars. I'm talking about this like I know what I'm saying, but so Yatvar's directing them to think that and rationalize that way so that they leave Sorville alone. There was
And it's true. Maybe it's just their perspective, right? Like maybe it's not even just what Yacht were like. Maybe she isn't in complete control, and they're just like all hail Yacht work, you know. Like I guess we're not gonna fuck with her, you know. So this is what she wants,
Yeah,
you know. They're the ones with the
they
circular
seem very much
logic.
to be
I
of the
don't
same
know.
opinion
And
as the what's the other civilization, Zumi, right? Where like the least you have interaction with the gods, the better it is. Like if you catch their attention,
yeah,
it's bad.
I would agree with that. You know, that seems reasonable to me.
Is that just a thing from mythology? Because Malazan has a lot of that too. Like, don't catch the god's attention. Is that just a thing
Very
people said in the
Greek
past?
and
Like,
Roman approach, and maybe
Yeah.
Mesopotamian too. I guess that sort of period. It's like, yeah, don't get it.
Well, it reminds me like kind of that like classic Chinese proverb of like, you know, you don't want to live in like interesting times, or you know, I'm paraphrasing. I'm saying it incorrectly, but right, like if the most important beings in existence are paying attention to you, that probably means your life is gonna suck.
that's true.
You know, like that's not. It's not like you're gonna. You know, they don't just act to the people who are like casually like farming. You know, they're concerned with like the players. And if you're a player, you know, that's usually not a pleasant
Very
existence.
different than it reminds me, Lord of the Rings discussion Pippin with Gandalf or Frodo. I don't remember. I thought it was Pippin. I don't know. Maybe it was Frodo. Something like, "I wish I was born in a different time where I didn't have to do this." And he's like, "Well, you just have to do the best you can in difficult times."
Yeah,
No, in this case, no.
absolutely,
Sorville just has to do the best he can.
absolutely.
Oh God! There was, speaking of rationalization, I do not remember where this quote is. Was it in the Moment chapter, or was it Memara? There's something about, oh yeah, I think when she's thinking to herself about Akamian, she says something interesting about how people rationalize to themselves, and I can't find it now. I think it was on the right side of the page. Let me see. Nope, I don't remember. But it was a very interesting
I can
quote.
imagine. It seems very appropriate for the book.
Yes.
Interjecting while you're finding that, I gotta give credit to Bakker. While we were in Serwa's head, I simultaneously felt bad for her because it really clicked just how terrible her parents are, and also hated her more because of how terrible her worldview is, you know, and you know how much I mean, it's a classic. She just like looks down on everyone. It's all manipulative. I mean, it's the classic kind of Dunian shit, but definitely also more explicitly, you know, emotional.
But I mean, she was like before, she was trying to relate to her mother, right? Until then she got disillusioned.
Yes.
It's kind of like, yeah.
I mean, yeah, and that's definitely a tragedy. And it is not surprising that Esmenet was a bad mother, but, you know, that it is still sad.
Hard to. Also, something I was wondering, is one of the guys with Neil Chilgiras or something, whatever, the guy with the necklace of human skulls, is that the guy from the first book with the, you know?
I was wondering that too, because that's the second time now we've had a human scalp non-men
Seems suspicious.
Decorated person, but the other guy had a cloak.
Maybe he keeps his cloak outside.
Right. He's like, that's not formal enough, for this, or it's too
Maybe.
warm
I
for
mean, if they're
that.
both associated with a console, it seems so. Maybe.
Yeah, I don't know. So unless you were trying to lead us down a false path and you're a false prophet, I'm getting the sense that we never have it
Maybe I
confirmed who
forgot.
that non-man is.
That's very possible. I forgot.
Okay.
There's so many
Okay.
little
Fair enough.
details and
I was
things
curious.
in these books that it's very
Right.
likely I forget the main plot points.
Because we don't get his name, right? In the prologue. He doesn't name himself. He's just like the non-man in Kellhus's point of view.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. It's kind of fucked up how he just wears a necklace of human skulls. Why?
Yeah.
And all the other non-men are kind of like, yeah, that's fine. Yeah. I guess they fucked up the Muammas, so I don't think they treat them very well, for sure. So maybe it's pretty normal. Yeah. I guess even the most enlightened of non-men, I don't think cares too much for probably lesser beings.
I think it's possible some of them did, though. Like, once upon a time, I think they maybe did love some humans, and that's part of the tragedy, Maybe they still look down on them as, a lesser being, but I feel like the way we hear about, Nilgikas and his relationship with Seswatha, and just in general, that we're told all these times that these non-men had these loved humans and even had sexual romantic relationship with humans that then led to tragedy inevitably, kind of in the classic Lord of the Rings elven human pairing way, but in a fucked up way, as is tradition.
Yeah. Yeah, the whole scene though in the discussion with all the non-men and the king pouring oil on himself, it was very, very cool, that whole scene, I have to say. And their discussion, I just imagine they're pretty senile, I guess how we describe them, but kind of crazy, deranged, but also noble in a sense. Very striking.
Bakker does a good job of making them beautiful and scary.
And everything feels very claustrophobic.
Noble.
Inside this mansion, right? Yeah.
What are your thoughts, Steve? Swear.
It's on this reread, I'm finding more and more that I missed the first time, and like Dan said, there's just so much that it's hard to keep up with.
Right, these cherubim sections on the first read are very hard. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I could not tell you the names of all these people.
We're gonna be. Mm-hmm. You need to focus.
Good to know. So don't leave it to the last minute. Yeah, I was reading the Ishterabin chapter last, just a few minutes before we started recording, so I'm pretty sure I missed a bunch of stuff.
Yeah, they're a bit. I don't know, Carl, I think you were mentioning before, the writing is a bit obfuscate. It's not explicitly not clear in the descriptions.
Yes. Right. Yeah, I had trouble picturing the throne as it was described, the big non-man throne. I really couldn't. Yeah, some of the imagery is more clear than others. Sometimes he'll have a very simple phrase that's a classic thing, the way he describes a lot of the sci-fi tech. You're whether it's the flying chariot or the weapons of light or whatever, where I'm oh yeah, I see it immediately. But
yeah, I find it's very you get very distinct details of certain things, but not a whole picture. right? You need to fill in the gaps, I guess, in what you think.
And there's so much that it's hard to do that sometimes.
Yeah. The focus on the seal again, like with the dude in
True, the
Kellhus, is
seal.
that was the seal representative of the guy? Because apparently it's a symbol of the kingship. So, and we know the guy who came out of hell was also some old king or something. So is that why his representative form was a seal?
I swear this part, I don't know if you remember, Steve, but I don't know what it's supposed to, what am I supposed to remember here or recognize?
Yeah, I'm like,
Because the way it's mentioned, it feels like I'm supposed to do like, I see.
but it's a lot of that happens a lot, like especially in the second series. There's a lot of things that I was like, I feel like I should know what that means, and I don't
Yeah,
remember what it does. Yeah.
And like, why a giant seal? Like, is that how they stamped their letters, using that giant seal? Did they write like really? Did they use tapestries for their mail? Like, what was this?
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know what the hell's going on there.
Maybe we'll figure it out, hopefully.
Yes.
Quotes?
Yes, quotes. Who wants to go first? Steve, of course. That's a silly question.
1 second, let me pull it up.
Yeah, I don't know. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Page 149. The horror will carry you through wars and famine and glory, only to drown you for tripping in a ditch.
Yeah.
True.
Very true.
Maybe that's how Kellhus dies. Maybe if a white buck warrior drops like a banana peel, and that's how.
He finally gets a bad Sranc and gets an infection.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The librarian. When did we read about the librarian? Oh yeah, the guy that Kellhus tries to. I forgot about that bit. The librarian that Kellhus terrorizes. Yeah, I like how Mimara used Akamian's own reasoning to convince him to be safe. Like, this place is Dunye.
She gets it now.
Yeah. Like, what else? Any other quotes? Anybody else? Any interesting epigraphs? I feel like I understood the epigraphs a lot less in this book and perhaps this series than in the first series overall. Are there any that are like standing out more to you guys on a reread?
Yeah, I think once you have an idea what's going to happen in the chapter, it'll make a little bit more sense.
That's interesting. That's a good point. One thing I will say about that I am noticing that it's definitely hitting me. I think I would notice whether or not I knew that there was no editor on these last two books is italics are way overused. Like, I used to feel like he was really good at like being like a very pointed use of italics, but it's like every paragraph we have like multiple italicized, like emphasized moments that I just like feel like it gets distracting after a while. And I don't feel like everything, like there's sometimes it's italicizing something that's like, it's like trying to, he wants it to feel really intense, but there are some times where I feel like he's actually undercutting it by like trying to draw too much attention to it. And it's interesting just noticing that writing tick of his that like I can just imagine that all of his first drafts are just filled with these, italicized section after italicized section. But I mean, otherwise, I quite enjoy the prose. And
I guess we're getting
seeing it
more
all.
raw Baker, right? With all his
Yeah.
mistakes and everything else. Yeah, I think you'll definitely see
absolutely.
more in the last two books, more of his vices or something, in the way he writes.
It definitely feels very, between the italics and then like the occasional scene where I just
Yeah.
have genuinely no idea what's happening, where it's like, it feels like this is too much obfuscation. Like I definitely felt, I don't know that there was ever a single scene in the original trilogy. Like there were scenes where it was like, okay, I don't understand exactly the motivations or like all the details going on, but like I could generally follow the events, like in the same way I kind of feel that with the kind of court scene we have here with the non-men, where like I can follow the narrative here, right? Like I can see what's going on here. And then you have like some of the head on the pole scenes, which I'm sure like have purpose, but are just written in such a way that it's like, I get nothing out of this. Like I don't, it's kind of a mood piece for me, but like, I don't know.
I can't see how they're
can't follow
supposed to be anything but something for someone rereading. Like it makes no sense. You can't understand them the first time unless you've got magical prediction powers or something.
You're the White Luck Warrior. You just see all time at once,
Yeah, it's like
That's what
impossible to know.
Yeah, that's why I think like the first series, I don't think you need to reread. Like there's not as much of that. While the second series, it's kind of like you could possibly just finish it and then just read the second series. Way more than the first series.
Yeah.
Oh, you mean don't reread the first series?
You
like it's
can.
not necessary, is that?
It just there's less of those things in it.
It's more straightforward, right? It's not quite as dense too.
Yeah. That's fair. I found. Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead, Varsha.
Oh, I was going to say I found another quote that I wanted to share, but then I found it. This was describing Kellhus Proyas interaction, and he was Shadowplay, his disciple, the light of cosmic enormities bent small across the surface of a tear. He was an oak leaf, riding the yaw and twizzle of drafts, hanging above the rumor of whirlwinds. Again, beautiful, no idea what it means, but I love how those words are put together. It sounds really pretty.
Yeah.
Which is a strange thing for it to feel because of what he's doing to Proyas in this scene, but...
I think the Proyas Kellhus chapter is one of my favorite of the book. It's
like this particular one or like all
very good, very keeps you really in there. There's a lot of beautiful language. There's a lot to think about. It's very powerful.
Yeah, for sure.
It was really good.
Yeah,
I agree.
I like when I'm reading a book when I'm sleepy and then it just wakes me up. This chapter did that. Any other quotes to share or any other final thoughts before we close up?
I guess next week, 8 through 11.
8 through 11.
Sound about right?
I think we might be able to go up to 12.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, 11 is really short.
Yeah. Or, yeah.
How long? Oh, shit. How long is chapter 12? Oh, my God.
12 is... So it brings us up to page 334. So, like
What
about
page are we on?
125 pages. We could also stop at 11. Like that either work. We can decide.
How long is after that?
For 334.
Yeah, I guess it just depends. Oh, it would probably be a big final chunk. So yeah, through 11 I think makes sense because this book is like 500 pages. So
Yeah. Okay, let's do up to 11 next
Up
week.
to 11 included 11?
So
Okay. through 11.
Through 11.
Yeah.
Reading 11.
I always
Stop
get
at 12.
confused.
Okay.
Me too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Me too. Okay. So, outros. Steve?
Sure. Find me on pagestream.com or all the other podcasts that we are on. All the different PageStream podcasts are speculative speculations.
Find
Dan.
me at PageStream, the Enfire 17.
You can find me on social media at Carl D. Albert or on Page Chewing. I believe I am also Carl D. Albert there.
Dan.
I'm done.
Oh, no, Dan already went. Sorry, I got distracted. And you can find me on the YouTube channel Reading by the Rainy Mountain, on the Speculative Speculations podcast, and Haunting the Picturing forums. Thank you, everyone, for listening. We'll see you next week with up to chapter 11. Bye.